So Jake and I are out and we're making a quick CTSV video, and we wanted to include a little bit of a talking head portion because I've made car videos before and it seems like you just kind of start the video with B-roll about the car and you're just doing donuts, and that's cool, but I think adding a little bit of a talking head would take it to the next level. So in this setup we have 0 lights happening here with a 2-camera setup, and I was going to get XLR audio and rig up my boom mic and all this stuff, but we just decided to go with a really quick and easy DJI wireless mic setup. This is nice because there are 0 lights. There's just diffusion coming from the sun side, and then we have a little bit of negative fill, and that's it. There's no need for power or anything else. Like I said, this is a very quick shot, so I didn't want to drag out a bunch of lights. So this is about as quick of a shot as we can do with diffusion and having a little bit of negative fill on our subject so it doesn't just look completely flat. So let's go over our setup really quick. Okay, super quick setup. There's no lights. We're kind of having to do this one a little quick, but we have 2 cameras and we just have some diffusion. This is a 6x6 just with 2 C-stands, and I even brought my sandbags this time. This is actually a negative fill called a math bounce. 2x2 that flips down into a 4x4, negative fill on one side, bounce on the other. We're using the negative fill to kind of like, we're not using any lights, so we're using diffusion over here to block the sun, and then we're actually removing some light from Jake's left side with the math bounce. Are you super stoked? Now that we're back in the office and we're not rapidly losing golden hour light, I can dig into this setup a little bit more. Starting off with exposure. To start off, I exposed this shot for the background, but it was a little difficult because it was golden hour, and sometimes it was perfect golden hour, but then sometimes clouds would go in front of the sun and it would completely underexpose the entire shot. So I tried to control the lighting the best I could, but this was a private property location and we only had 1 hour to shoot and we couldn't use any lights. So we had to set up, shoot, and tear down in 1 hour. And this was the exposure that I was setting my camera at just for the sake of time. The composition here was also pretty challenging as well. We literally were in a parking lot looking at a building in Cleveland. I positioned his car so sunlight would hit the far side and the shadows would hit closest to the camera. Then I positioned Jake so that the highlight side of him intersected the shadow side of his car, adding some contrast and breaking up the lines of his car. Then I adjusted the height and tilt so he would intersect the lines in the building on the background of both cameras and called it a day. Could this have been better? Sure, but given the time restrictions here, this is what I was working with. When it came to lighting here, I wasn't able to use any lights, so we had to get a little creative. For the key, I was using the sun and some diffusion. This is a 6x6 scrim, and I'm not sure what the actual diffusion cloth is, but it does cut out a lot of light. This is a pretty affordable kit that I bought a while ago. It's not the highest quality, but it is pretty fast to get set up and running, and it does pack down into a really small bag. This can be set up as a 4x4, 6x6, or 8x8, and the kit includes dedicated cloths for each of those sizes, and bungees and ears for the C-stands. In this setup, we were going pretty quickly, and I think we used like 2 bungees per side, and it worked out totally fine. But that being said, there wasn't any wind. If it was any windier, I would have used all the bungees here, but again, we were going pretty quick. Usually working at golden hour is a complete blessing, but this was a curse with how many clouds there were. So I knew it was going to be a little bit of a flat image when we didn't have any sunlight out. So this is where the negative fill came in, so I could add a little bit of contrast to Jake. Using a floppy to help pull some more light from the shadow side helped me add some more contrast even when the sun went behind the clouds. It doesn't get any easier than putting a floppy on a stand and just opening it up. When I'm traveling light, this math bounce is awesome, but if you're going to be using it outside, make sure you have some kind of clips or something that you can put on the bottom of it if you're opening it up, just because if a little bit of wind catches the bottom flap of that bounce, it is going to be completely flopping all over the place. I've been using those little Harbor Freight cheapo clips. I should probably get some different ones that aren't bright orange, but that's what I was working with. When it came to positioning everything, I knew I didn't have a lot of time and I would be working against sunlight here. So I had to move quickly and I kind of had to staple things down really quick. So to do that, I started off by putting a apple box down and having Jake back his car up. So when he was sitting in it, he would be about covering his back wheel and the major part of the shadow side. I put him on 1/3, and then I positioned my cameras around that. I put the wide camera, so the negative fill was just out of frame, so it would try to suck up any light that was on him. But I knew the diffusion, I could actually walk that back a little farther. In the Y or the BTS shot, it looks like the diffusion is way off, but in the wide frame, if it was any closer, you'd be able to see the stands. Like I said, I was running 2 cameras and there was only 1 person, so I had to make sure he did not move in the shot at all, because if he moved a little too far out of frame, I would have completely ruined the shot, and of course that would have been the one that I wanted to use. So knowing that, sitting him down on an apple box was very important for me. Even if you could see it in the shot, it kept him from moving and fidgeting around. And every time I find that I'm in a time crunch and I have a lot of things that I'm juggling in the air, it doesn't matter how much tape I put on the floor, they're going to move from that mark when they start talking or fidgeting or moving around, and it will completely blow the frame. So I actually had him sitting on the apple box, and I was just like hunched down to the left side of the main camera. For cameras, I was using the Sony FX3 with a 50mm 1.2 as my A camera, and the FX30 with a Tamron 17-70 as my B camera. Each camera also had a VND and a 1/8 mist filter. I went a little tighter for 2 different reasons. One, I positioned him relative to the sun first, and then I realized there's a dumpster in frame and a giant tree that's blocking all of the buildings. So I just went with a 50mm for the A camera to cut out the majority of the tree and the dumpster completely. But also going tighter allowed me to get the negative fill closer to him. If I could have done one thing differently, it would be to have a larger negative fill to pull more shadows from his shadow side. But given the time restrictions, I'm very happy with how this turned out. And it was really fun to just get out, get something together quickly, shoot it, and tear it all down as fast as you possibly could. It's not like I went out all day and was able to tinker around with all of the framing and lenses and everything. We went out as fast as we could, we got what we needed, and we got out of there. I had a really great time making this breakdown video, and I'm not a master DP or cinematographer or gaffer or anything like that. I'm just a videographer trying to make it. So if you guys have any other suggestions of what I could do better or fine-tune things, please let me know in the comments down below. And I will definitely be making more of these breakdown videos in the future. I had an absolute blast making the video. It was like an extra step to the process, but I really enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of this in the comments down below, and thank you guys for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is nice because there's tons of clouds in the off. I can't do it. I can do it with 2 cameras on me, but you giggling in the corner, I just can't do it. Reset.